Our next type of species interaction or symbiosis is antagonisms. And this is where one species is going to benefit at the expense of the other. And there are lots of terms that we use to describe specific types of antagonisms, such as parasitism, predation, herbivory, and lots more. But the thing that all of these, predation, parasitism, herbivory, have in common is that we have one species taking advantage of the other. The range of antagonisms can vary from being not very deadly to being extremely deadly. So something might not kill you, but it can still have a negative effect. So if like a common cold, right, it's going to make you feel pretty icky for a couple days, but you're not going to die from it probably unless there's other things going on with you. Now, if you're a zebra and you're getting chased down by a lion, that antagonistic relationship might end up with a highly lethal situation. Okay, so we can kind of have this lethality spectrum. And then going the other way, our other axis, they might vary from being short-term interactions, like, so for example, this gazelle grazing on this grass. It's going to eat the tops of the grass, leave the roots intact. The grass can grow back, but it just lost a bunch of its leaves, so it has lower photosynthetic ability. But the grass isn't going to die because of it. Okay, it can just handle it. Now, the duration of that interaction can also be on the very long term. So, for example, you might have a parasite that is just going to be in your body, like, right? So these ticks that are living on these deer are going to be drawing blood from the deer, making them kind of feel bad, but maybe not be lethal, but it's going to be a long-term situation. And then we can also have the combination of being highly deadly and a long-term. Later on, I have a link to a video of zombie ants where these fungi take over the brains of the ants and change their behavior. It's very cool. Now, predation is a very common antagonistic relationship, but prey species don't just sit around waiting to be eaten. And actually, we see several anti-predator strategies that have evolved. And so the first one we're going to talk about is chemical defenses. We see this in animals and in plants. So for example, we have all these brightly colored animals. These are going to be, typically when we see brightly colored animals, that is a warning to say, don't mess with me, bro. I'm venomous and or toxic, and so I will kill you right dead if you try to eat me. Also, plants have developed a whole suite of chemical defenses because they don't have the ability to run away from their predators. They have to maintain their bodies where they are. So most of our drugs, medicinal or otherwise, are plant chemical defenses. So the caffeine that you might have in your morning coffee or in your afternoon energy drink, as the case may be, is a great example of a plant chemical defense. Another strategy that we might employ is to hide. So camouflage is where we're going to see the prey species or even predator species, like we see down here, that are going to blend into their background. And we can actually even see this in plants when we have these extreme environments where there's a lot of disturbance with these shale that can landslide. If you're a little plant in there, you want to be hiding from things that will try to eat you. This really high alpine has the coloration where it's going to blend into its background. These stone plants live in really, really hot places where there's not a lot of water availability. And so they're going to kind of camouflage themselves in with the gravelly surface where they grow. We might have organisms that try to scare off their would-be predators, and I'll throw this link in the playlist too, so we can see plants using intimidation as an anti-predator strategy. Another anti-predator strategy is mimicry, where we are going to try to look like something that either is toxic, like we can see with these different butterfly species, or mimic something that isn't actually yummy to eat, even though we are good to eat. And we might just even fight back and tell those predators to leave us alone, okay, using armor or weapons. Predator and prey species population levels have interesting interactions with each other. And we have this nice predator-prey population dynamic. And the classic example of this is data that was collected in Canada for about 100 years, where we're looking at the population level of hares and the population level of lynx through time. When the population of the hares decreases, there's less food for the lynx, and that means that the lynx's population is also going to go down. But when there are fewer predators, that means that the hare population can start to go back up, which means then, of course, that the lynx there's more food for the lynxes, their carrying capacity is going to increase, they're going to have an increase in their population. Now, if the lynxes are too many lynxes, the hare population is going to decrease. And we see this kind of mirroring these population growths and population declines. They're a little bit offset from each other. So we have a little bit of lag time between the population growth of the hares and the population growth of the lynx, and same with the population declines. So the predators or plants are given the nice name of herbivores, and insect herbivores tend to have a larger effect on the plant population compared to large mammalian herbivores. And that's just because there's more species and more individuals of insect herbivores than there are mammalian herbivores. So there's just more biomass of bugs that are going to eat plants and mammals that are going to eat plants. So they're going to have a greater effect on those population dynamics. Okay. Parasites are the most common type of antagonism. In fact, they're the most common type of species interaction. So parasites are organisms that live on, in, or with another species that we call their host and cause the host harm as the parasite is taking nutrients either directly or indirectly from their host. For example, mice that have the Toxoplasma gondii parasite are less risk averse and more likely to approach cats. And that is probably going to have some negative consequences for the mouse, but for the Toxoplasma, that parasite needs to be able to get into a feline host in order for it to complete its sexual life cycle. So this little single cell protist is going to manipulate the behavior of the mouse so that the protist can complete its life cycle. And also check out the zombie ants that I talked about just a couple slides ago for another example of this altering pest, or the parasite altering the host behavior. It's so cool. Plants can also be parasitic. So some plants have lost their chlorophyll and need to obtain all their sugars from another plant because they can't no longer do photosynthesis if they don't have chlorophyll. And so what they're going to do is steal that sugar either directly, like we see with this daughter. So this viney guy has wrapped itself around its host plant, and it's used its root-like appendages called hystoria to dig in to its host plant and suck out the sugars that it makes through photosynthesis, directly stealing those sugars. Now, this one, our pine drop, this actually is, I took this photo on the San Francisco Peak. So if you head up Snowball Road, there's a big parking lot, and you can kind of find these guys around. It's totally lost its chlorophyll. And what it's doing is it's using the associations that it has with fungi on its roots to tap into the roots of ponderosa pine. And so it's indirectly stealing the pine's sugars so it can feed itself. Now, mistletoe, that plant that we all stand under around Christmas time, we also house different species of mistletoe here in northern Arizona. I think there's 4 or 5 of them. and they each are going to be adapted to use different hosts. And what they're doing, they're not necessarily stealing sugar. Around here, they are stealing water from their host plants. So here's that mistletoe tapping into the water moving pipes on this ponderosa pine.